Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is to take that absolute flood of weekly cloud updates.
It's a lot to sort through every single week.
It really is. And we're going to cut straight to what actually matters for your current infrastructure planning, for your development workflow. We're deep diving into the most relevant Azure updates from the first week of December 2025. This is for you, the person who needs to know what to do now.
And this week is a perfect example of why we have to prioritize. The volume is just always high. So our focus today is pretty surgical. We're looking at critical general availability features, some really significant public previews, and of course the retirements you have to know about.
Okay, so what's the structure?
We've grouped them thematically. We'll hit foundational stability first, then the AI frontier, and finally database integrity.
Sounds logical, building from the ground up. So let's start with foundational stability. Storage.
Stability first, always. And we have a major GA feature here, zonal placement for Azure Files Premium LRS.
LRS, locally redundant storage. Okay, so this seems like a subtle shift. We're going from regional level thinking to explicit zonal engineering.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Historically with LRS, you knew your data was redundant somewhere in the region, but you might not have known exactly where it was in relation to your compute.
Exactly. It was a bit of a black box. This change gives you explicit control. You can now pin your storage accounts to a specific availability zone.
And for anyone managing mission-critical infrastructure, that is a huge deal.
Oh, it's massive. It moves us past just relying on Azure's general HA model and lets you engineer for, truly granular fault isolation.
So you can co-locate your compute and storage in the same zone intentionally.
Right. And when you do that, you slash the complexity, and this is the critical part, you ensure predictable failover behavior. You know the exact zone locality, so you can plan your traffic routing, your cross-zone replication, all with much more confidence. It's GA now in select regions, and it's something HA architects have been waiting for.
Printable failover. That is often the difference between a high-pressure incident and just a controlled recovery. Sticking with storage, there's another GA that looks like a major quality of life improvement.
It is. Azure Blob Storage SFTP now supports resumable uploads.
Okay, anyone who's ever had to move terabytes of data over a spotty WAN link just sat up and paid attention.
You know it. Before this, if you were transferring a huge file to Blob Storage or ADLS via SFTP and it failed partway through,
You started over from zero.
right. Wasted bandwidth, wasted time, maybe you miss your processing SLAs. It was punitive.
So how does it work now, technically?
It's tightly integrated with the service. The user can just open the partial file that was already written, Azure hold on to it, and then you seamlessly continue writing the rest of the content.
Picking up right where you left off.
Exactly. Imagine pushing a 50-gigabyte machine learning dataset. Restarting at the 45 gig mark is just not tenable in production. This is a direct fix for that exact problem.
I see the immediate win there. It's cost savings and hitting those critical ingestion windows. All right, let's pivot from the foundation right to the frontier. AI and compute. We have a big one in public preview. Mistral Large 3 is now Microsoft Foundry on Azure.
This is a really significant one. We're seeing a true entry point for enterprise adoption of really cutting-edge AI. Mistral Large 3 is a frontier-class model, and the key distinction here is that it's an open-weight model.
Open weight, that's the key phrase.
Yeah.
What else makes this release interesting for an Azure enterprise user beyond just, raw performance?
The biggest green light for production use is the license. It has the Apache 2.0 license.
Which gives legal teams the assurance they need.
It does. Beyond that, the technical specs are top tier. You've got enterprise-grade reliability, massive long context comprehension, so it can handle huge inputs, and importantly, multimodal reasoning.
Let's drill into that. Multimodal reasoning. We know it means handling different data types, but in an Azure context, what kind of complex workload does that solve?
It opens up some seriously deep automation. Think about something like insurance claim processing. The model doesn't just read the policy text and the adjuster's notes. It can simultaneously analyze the uploaded photos of the damage, cross-reference data from a PDF diagram, and then synthesize a single coherent recommendation.
So you're moving from these brittle, multi-stage pipelines to one powerful reasoning engine.
That's the idea. And that kind of complexity, of course, requires some pretty robust compute to manage.
Which is a perfect segue to our next public preview. Serverless workspaces in Azure Databricks.
It is. As models like Mistral Large 3 become more common, the demand for analytics infrastructure that just scales without effort is going to explode. Databricks serverless workspaces are designed to tackle that core compute overhead challenge that so many data engineering teams face. It's a fully managed workspace.
So if I'm using this, what am I not managing anymore? What goes away?
You are no longer worrying about cluster provisioning. No more optimal sizing, no more patching, none of that general infrastructure maintenance. The workspace comes pre-configured with serverless compute and default storage. It's a true SaaS experience for data analytics.
So less time fighting with infrastructure and more time actually doing the analysis or training models.
That's the goal, minimal overhead, so you can focus on your data and AI workflows, not on being a part-time cluster admin.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now we have to shift to the one non-negotiable update this week. The big retirement warning.
Yes. This is a critical alert, and it really demands immediate dependency assessment from every ML team out there.
We're talking about the Azure ML SDK v1.
V1 and its associated dependencies. The official end-of-life date is June 30th, 2026.
That sounds like it's a long way off, but in enterprise terms, that's tomorrow.
It really is. For complex ML pipelines with all sorts of intricate dependencies, the clock is absolutely ticking now.
Okay, so what are the specific packages, the SDKs, that have to be targeted for removal? It's usually not just one name.
Right. The list is very precise, and you should be checking this against every single requirements file. You need to remove dependencies on Azure ML Train Core, Azure ML Pipeline, and also Azure ML Pipeline Core, Azure ML Pipeline Internal, and the last one is Azure ML Pipeline Steps.
Got it.
And teams have to understand, migrating from V1 to V2 is not a simple version bump. It's often a significant refactoring effort. You need to start planning that now.
A necessary but definitely unpleasant update for some teams. Okay, shifting gears. Let's talk about database integrity and security. We're starting with an interesting one. GA of Azure MCP Server support for Azure Confidential Ledger.
This is a fascinating integration, and it touches on that theme of AI abstraction layers. The MCP, or Model Context Protocol server, basically provides a streamlined way to manage certain Azure resources.
A streamlined abstraction layer. So what does that actually mean in practice?
It means users can interact with secure services, like the confidential ledger, using natural language prompts.
Hold on, I want to be clear on the tech here. Is the MCP server acting like a translator? It takes a natural language prompt and then executes the right API call against the ledger.
Precisely. It's an intelligent intermediary. Instead of writing SDK code to query the ledger's immutable record, you might just type, "Show me all audit logs for user ID 789 that access data since yesterday."
And the MCP server just figures it out.
It translates that intent into the required API requests and manages the context. It dramatically simplifies how you interact with this highly sensitive, immutable infrastructure.
That suggests a pretty profound shift. Natural language is becoming a primary, secure interface for managing what has traditionally been very complex, code-first infrastructure.
Absolutely. And speaking of database integrity, we saw 4 key GA updates for Azure Database for PostgreSQL Flexible Server this week.
Okay, let's break them down. What are they?
First, a simple but important one, a new region. You can now deploy in Belgium Central. Great for European compliance and latency.
Good. What's second?
Second is an extension update. PG Squeeze is now available to upgrade to version 1.9.1. This is for reducing table bloat without a lot of downtime, helps keep performance up.
Okay, useful maintenance stuff. I hear the next 2 extensions have a more direct impact on data handling and security, though. What's the IP4R extension?
That's right. The third GA is the IP4R extension. This gives you highly efficient storage and indexing for IPv4 and IPv6 addresses and ranges.
So if your app deals with any kind of network, telemetry, security logs, geolocation data.
This is a huge performance boost compared to just storing those IP addresses as, plain text strings.
Makes sense. And the final one sounds like it's all about defense in depth at the database layer itself.
It is. The 4th GA update is for the CredCheck extension. This lets you enforce really rigorous password and credential validation policies directly inside PostgreSQL.
It's not at the application level, but in the database.
Exactly. And that is a powerful security enhancement. By enforcing the policy at the database layer, you guarantee compliance no matter which application or tool is trying to connect. It's a critical layer of defense.
A massive push for stronger internal database security. Okay, last section. Let's cover some networking quality of life and physical expansion. For the ops teams, we have a nice GA update. Azure Load Balancer bandwidth metrics now support the protocol dimension.
This is a welcome bit of detail for anyone doing granular analysis. Before, your bandwidth metrics, byte count, packet count, SYN count were useful, but you couldn't easily filter by protocol.
Now you can.
Now you can. The metrics include the dimension protocol, so you can easily distinguish TCP traffic, which is denoted by protocol 6, from, say, UDP traffic.
Which means you can do much better traffic analysis. You could filter out all the health check noise to see your true HTTP application payload, for instance.
Exactly. Better root cause analysis.
All right, finally, let's talk infrastructure expansion. General availability of the Perth Azure Extended Zone.
Right. Azure Extended Zones are always interesting because they're not quite a full region.
So architecturally, what are they? And what's the problem they solve for users?
Think of them as small footprint extensions of a core Azure region. They're often placed in specific metro areas or industrial centers like Perth. Their whole purpose is to serve workloads that need two things. One, extremely low, localized latency think industrial IoT or finance apps that need single-digit millisecond response times.
And the second thing?
The second is fulfilling very specific data residency requirements. They keep the physical hardware localized to meet those local laws while still leveraging the fiber backbone of the parent region.
So the Perth GA is just a continuation of that strategic localization.
Yeah.
Okay, let's synthesize this. The biggest takeaways from this week, for me, it's that shift to granular, explicit control in storage with Files Premium LRS.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And on the AI front, the arrival of an Apache 2.0 frontier model like Mistral Large 3 really feels like it's validating open-weight models for serious enterprise use.
And you can't forget the call to action, the ML SDK V1 retirement. Teams need to be planning for that right now.
Absolutely.
If you look across all the GA announcements, the theme is really about optimizing resilience, whether that's zonal control or resumable uploads, and injecting more intelligence and abstraction into how we manage everything.
Like we saw with the MCP server.
Exactly. Infrastructure is maturing towards more automation and stronger internal security, like with those PostgreSQL extensions.
And that leads us perfectly to the final provocative thought for you to chew on this week. We just talked about the GA of the Azure MCP server and the release of these frontier-class open-weight models like Mistral Large 3. Both of these signal a deeper integration of natural language and AI into core cloud management. So, if confidential ledger and resource management are already moving towards natural language prompts, what are the next high-impact, traditionally code-first components that will get abstracted away by these AI interfaces? Think about network configuration, security policy management, even your infrastructure as code pipelines. What happens when those become conversational, and what does that imply for traditional DevOps skill sets over the next 12 months?
We invite you to consider how fast those roles will need to adapt to managing through intent rather than managing through syntax.
We'll let you think on that one. Thanks for diving deep with us.